Hello, welcome to the Cricket Nerds. It's all of the boys once again, and we're going to be doing a bit of Mystic Mac predictions for what's going to happen in 2023. There's a lot that's going to happen, and we, the Cricket Nerds, are going to get all of it absolutely correct. And if we don't, then you can absolutely pull us up on it.
First prediction. Unsubscribe.
First prediction is that you're going to subscribe. And I know this is correct because you know this is premium content. So don't forget to subscribe. We're really trying to hit that 1,000 subscriber milestone. So if you can help out, if you can tell your friends, tell your family, help us out, we really do appreciate it. Now, the first one we're going to predict should be a relatively easy thing to predict, actually, is who's going to win the World Test Championship. Now, at the moment, Australia are far and away the dominant force in test matches. So, Zach, I'm going to go to you first. What is your prediction for the result of the World Test Championship?
Well, I'm pretty sure there aren't that many teams who can qualify at the moment. I'm pretty sure it's either India or South Africa. And maybe South Africa are out of it now if they don't win any test matches against Australia. So it's either going to be Australia against India. It's probably going to be that. And given India's record against Australia in recent years, I feel like India might have the upper hand. I know Australia are doing really well in Test cricket at the moment. They've got a very settled squad, a very settled side. But in those crunch matches, actually, I take it back. Australia are going to win because in the crunch matches, India don't win. You can see the evidence in the World Cup and the 2020 World Cup, and the Asia Cup as well. So maybe Australia, yeah, they're doing really well, aren't they?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I say this because the World Test Championship is directly after the Ashes this summer.
True.
So the last match of the Ashes is the last in this World Test Championship cycle. And I think the Australian team are going to be reeling and hurting and in pain and regrouping after being demoralised in a crushing 5-0 clean sweep by Bazball, that they just won't want to play cricket. They'll come into the World Test Championship final against India or whoever it is, like wounded puppies, and we'll be nowhere. We'll be trounced and walked over. Pat Cummins will have been sacked because of Ben Stokes' men and the thrashing 5-0.
My goodness.
Going to impose on them.
All right, you built a picture there. That was that in a dream last night?
I don't know. I don't know where that came from.
Well, that was poetry.
That was lovely.
Yeah, honestly. So I genuinely think that being Bazballed could actually could affect Australia.
Yeah, boys, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, seeing what Bazball has done to Pakistan, where do you remember that first Test match they played against New Zealand? Babar Azam declared with a lead of 140 with 15 overs to go. It was and on the flattest deck of all time, there was zero hope of him winning, and he declared. That's what Bazball does to people. It completely fried his brain, and he made a stupid decision. So I think that could have a bearing on it. So yeah, my money is actually on India, provided they pick the right squad. And for me, the right squad for India always includes Ravi Ashwin. And every time they omit him, I am perplexed because I think he is one of the greatest all-rounders that India's ever produced. So, yeah, that's my prediction for the World Test Championship. If they don't pick Ravi Ashwin, the Aussies win.
Also, Jasprit Bumrah's back in.
And they're doing workload management as well in the IPL. So that might mean that people like Bumrah are less guaranteed to be injured for
Yeah.
the important matches that India play internationally.
Psychologically, Australia's team that they come up against and they're not sure is India, because normally Australia go into a series, especially if it's at home, and they're like, oh, no one can really beat us. And they've absolutely hammered South Africa in 2 games. And South Africa are a team that have beaten Australia in Australia over the last however many years. So, yeah, I think Australia, it's just India is their only mental hurdle. But the Ashes, Benji thinks England are going to absolutely hammer the Aussies in the Ashes, given Bazball. Bazball wasn't even a thing at the start of last year. We would never have thought of that. But I think it's going to take a lot for England to beat the Aussies, even in their own country, even with Bazball, because if a bowling lineup is going to disrupt Bazball, it's going to have Pat Cummins, Mitchell Starc, and Josh Hazlewood in it. I'm looking forward to seeing Nathan Lyon going the distance, getting hit all over the place. But yeah, I think Australia's fast bowlers might be the difference.
Yeah, I think what I've noticed, because I've been keeping a close eye on sort of the Australia South Africa series and the Australia West Indies series as well, and it seems to me like Australia at the minute seem to be struggling with balance, which is not something we normally say about the Aussies, and I think a crucial part of that is Cameron Green. If Cameron Green isn't fit for the Ashes or isn't fit for the World Test Championship final, it's going to cause all sorts of problems, because currently in their setup against South Africa, they've got 4 frontline bowlers and they're playing 2 spinners and 2 seamers. I don't think we've ever seen that from Australia. We've not that's not been seen for years.
No.
From Australia, to at least not have someone who can do medium pace or at least bowl seam up. And actually, Cameron Green is the key to fixing the balance issue that the Aussies have had for a lot of years. And I think he'll be a key for them when it comes to the end of the World Test Championship cycle, when it comes to the Ashes. Because if you get an injury to one of that, trifecta of Starc, Cummins, Hazlewood, and then Cameron Green's not there as well. Like at the minute, Australia have no Starc, they have no Green. They're playing Nathan Lyon, they're playing Josh Hazlewood, who's just back from injury. And I think it causes a bit of an issue. So he's a real key piece in that. So yeah, provided, this is my real prediction, not my poetry from earlier, but provided that they are all fit and have that balance. Bear in mind that it's being played in England at the Oval, conditions that do also, fit an Australian style of play, like coming in with 3 seamers and 1 spinner, or 4 seamers and 1 spinner. That's good in English conditions. And I think that's what we might see from them. And it's going to be in the Oval in this summer. So I think it will be favourable for them. And it looks to me like India are the only one who can be their opposition. By the looks of it,
India aren't in the Ashes, though.
No, but in the World Test Championship final. But they look like they could be without a key piece of their Test success in Rishabh Pant in that tournament, because he's very injured at the minute, and thoughts go out to poor Rishabh Pant. And as you say, James, if they pick the wrong squad, then they could be in trouble. And I think also Australia having almost 5 warm-up games with the Ashes for the World Test Championship final, not that that's going to be the way that they see it, because the Ashes to Australia mean way more than the World Test Championship final, but those 5 warm-up games almost to get used to the English conditions, I think it might put them in a decent place.
Yeah. So as far as my prediction for the Ashes, so we've had one absolute Bazball thrashing prediction. One is going to be pretty difficult. I agree. I think it'd be really difficult, but I think with the comeback of Ollie Stone is coming back from injury, Jofra Archer's coming back from injury, Johnny Bairstow should be coming back from injury. I think it's quite exciting for England. We saw how much, how many issues Jofra Archer gave the Aussies last time they came over. We saw how many issues Mark Wood gave the Aussies when we were over. He was the only player there that actually came out with his stock increased from that tour. So I think bowling wise, we're looking very powerful. And then, with certain players doing as well as they did or continuing their upward trajectory, people like Johnny Bairstow, Harry Brook, and obviously Root, Pope at 3, Duckett. I'm not completely terrified about facing the Aussies this time. Now, should we go on to actually who we think's going to do well next kind of year in Test matches? Because I've mentioned 3 there or 4 of Duckett, Root, Brook, and Bairstow. Who are the people in particular that we think could have like a bit of a breakout 2023?
I've got 2 names for batters.
Yeah.
The first one being Shubman Gill. I think if India need an opening batsman, and he's someone who could definitely cement that role at the top of the order for India. He's very talented, and I think after a while it gets to the stage where talented players start to come through for India, and he's one of them. And then the other player who's already had an amazing start to 2023, and that's Saud Shakil for Pakistan. And we saw his start to Test cricket in the England-Pakistan series at the end of last year, and he looked very good. He looked very assured, and he's hit a very good century against New Zealand. So he's someone who, given opportunities, given the right management, given the right conditions, he could do very well. We've yet to see him really be tested outside of Pakistan, outside those Asian conditions. But yeah, he's definitely one that I like the look of.
I'm gonna continue on the with another Indian player. It's somebody who I think might finally get his Test call up. I've been crying out for his Test call up all of last year, and that is Sarfaraz Khan. The bloke has played 34 first-class matches, and he averages 77.43 with the bat at a strike rate of 69.56. Sorry, that's like that. They're Bazball numbers, if ever you saw them. That is absolutely incredible. And he's somebody that, with 11 centuries and 9 50s to his name, could really boost that Indian middle order. And I think it's about time that he got a chance. That's who I think could have, if he gets a chance, I think he could have an incredible 2023. Another person I think could have a really good 2023, provided that he comes back from injury well, is Kyle Jamieson. Because we saw how well he did in 2021, and then he obviously got injured and he had quite a quiet time. So I think if he comes back, he could absolutely tear it up.
Yeah, I'm actually going to look at bowlers, and I I'm really excited to see how Ollie Robinson does this summer. I think he didn't play a full summer this year due to fitness and injury. We saw a lot of Matt Potts over the summer, especially against New Zealand and South Africa. But he had such a good end, especially in that third Test against South Africa, where we saw Robinson come back in that, and I think he performed well as well in Pakistan. So I'm excited for Ollie Robinson in that Test match scenario. And we've not talked about him, but Jofra Archer. Surely we're excited to see Jofra Archer back playing competitive cricket in at least some capacity. Like, he's just such an exciting player, isn't he? And with just that raw pace that he has, I think that'll be fantastic. And I want to say big shout out to Gary Balance, who has now signed up on a 2-year deal with the Zimbabwe national team to play for some T20Is against Ireland. I think that's a great move because he's a class player and actually would be pretty good if he'd get back into the England squad. I know he's about 1 million years old, but
he's not that old, I don't think. I think he's
about
similar age as
30s.
Joe Root, early 30s, yeah.
But no, I think enjoy him, Zimbabwe. Go for it. And I wish him all the best at Zimbabwe, to be honest.
It'll be nice to see if teams like Zimbabwe and Afghanistan and Ireland as well can get some more Test cricket next year or the year after. Hopefully, they're in the plans. I know that the World Test Championship kind of dominates the schedule, so it's even harder for them to get games out, which is a shame. But yeah, it'll be nice to see that.
Yeah.
Going off what you said, Benj, about Jofra Archer, it's with him in England's bowling lineup. Like we talked about Australia having Pat Cummins, Josh Hazlewood, Mitchell Stark, Scott Boland as well, Cameron Green. Beyond those five, I know there are other exciting potential fast bowlers for Australia, but I can't think of many. But when you look at the England bowling lineup and the reserves they have, because you've got Stuart Broad and James Anderson, who seem to be getting better and better with age, which seems ridiculous. But then you've also got Jofra Archer, you've got Chris Wokes, who in English conditions is brilliant. You've got Mark Wood. Ollie Robinson is now the 5th best bowler in the world rankings. England have some seriously good bowlers at the moment, and we look at how well Matthew Potts bowled last year. So I think Australia should be worried about England's bowlers, and Matthew Potts is another one for me who I think could have a bit of a breakthrough year given the opportunities. And obviously he's going to New Zealand as well to play some Test matches, which would be nice. So that's Test cricket. I don't know if anyone else had any other player.
Probably got tons, but I feel like we should leave it there and let people in the comments let us know if they've got any other Test players.
What are your thoughts on
Test cricket? Have a really good year.
Yeah. So Australia are probably going to win the World Test Championship. They're probably not going to win the Ashes. They're definitely not going to win the IPL, given that Australia is not a team in the IPL. But with that segue, who is going to win the IPL? Who do we think?
Obviously CSK.
Yeah, without a doubt, Punjab Kings.
Without bias.
Definitely not Punjab Kings then.
Well, do we think, because I want to get your opinions on Gujarat Titans. They won last year. We said they were a team that it was good form that essentially won them the IPL. But you look at their squad again, and they've still got some very good players, and we can't just say, it's a form thing. Shivam Mavi's in there, and he's had a brilliant game against Sri Lanka, getting 4 wickets. They've got Hardik Pandya as their captain, who seems to be a brilliant 2020 captain. Do we think they're going to retain their title?
You know what? I think we're definitely gonna. I'm gonna throw out a suggestion, but we're definitely gonna do in-depth content on the IPL where we will analyze each team in depth. We will have a proper think about what their chances are, and then I'll feel like I can come to a more informed decision. However, my gut instinct is no, because even though they've got incredible players that can do incredible things, I think everything just came together for them so well last year that actually, this is going to sound really salty, but the difference between the Gujarat season and the Punjab season was Gujarat just won the really close games that really could have gone either way. And that was because of the insane form that people like Rahul Tewatia and David Miller were in. And I don't know if that form can be replicated again. So that's what my instinct is. I'd love to know what you guys think. Just obviously our ill-informed opinions first. And like I say, we'll do previews later.
I don't think they had a good enough transfer and auction window to really be contenders again. And I think you're right, James. It was very much a form thing. Again, as an uninformed opinion, I think on paper, for me, my favourites right now are probably Sunrisers Hyderabad, just because of how much they smashed the auction, and they've got a very dangerous looking side. So I think they're my favourites sort of going into it. But I just say we're going to do some deeper analysis on this and bring you some more videos about it when we get close to the IPL. Zach, what do you think? Do you think it's RCB's year?
I hope so. I always hope so. But it's never RCB's year, which is sad. Royal Challengers will always have a good chance given some of the star players they've got in Hasaranga de Silva, Virat Kohli, Faf du Plessis, Glenn Maxwell. They've got some good young Indian players, so they'll always be in with a shot. But I think the squad that Mumbai Indians are building, you can never write off Mumbai Indians or Chennai Super Kings. Wearing the yellow today, especially when you look at Chennai Super Kings having Ben Stokes and Ravi Jadeja, two of the best all-rounders in world cricket. You can't write them off. But the team that I think could win it at the moment, this is the team that I do think, obviously going off just gut instinct, and that's Rajasthan Royals. They were finalists last year, got a very good squad. Rajasthan Royals just seem to be a team that's got a lot of players that are consistently good. So we'll see. And then the big one, let's finish with this. Who do we think is going to win the World Cup? And we can talk about players that we think are going to do well in the shorts format. So who do we think is going to win the World Cup? Because England defending champions, this is the ODI 50 over each World Cup. England defending champions. James, I'm going to go to you again for this question. Do you think England can win it again?
You know what? I've thought we need to have another series of in-depth analysis on each team because this is another uninformed opinion. I would have said absolutely if England hadn't had a rocky start to their ODI campaign post Owen Morgan.
Matthew Mott.
Yeah, in this Matthew Mott and Joss Butler era, we haven't been very good in the ODIs. You probably don't remember because they were the most stupidly timed ODIs ever. But there was actually an ODI series against Australia after the T20 World Cup, and we got absolutely slapped about. Now, granted, that wasn't our strongest side, but yeah, I think it'd be an interesting one to know how well we can do. But at the moment, I would say that England aren't the favourites from my perspective. I would throw that accolade out potentially to... I'm torn here. I might say South Africa if it wasn't for South Africa's record in World Cups and being absolute chokers. And for that reason, I'd be more inclined to go for India. But as far as like actual, talent of their squad in the ODI formats, I think South Africa to do really well. Especially thinking about like Rassie van der Dussen is one of the greatest ODI batsmen in the world. And he's only one of the players, obviously. So, yeah, I think that could do really well. What do you think?
Goodness. The thing is, we haven't seen ODI cricket in so long because, with the run-up to the T20 World Cup, there was so much focus on everyone played T20 series against each other. ODI seemed to be the forgotten format last year. And sort of the 50 over one day format, people are talking about what's the future of it going to be. I, again, haven't seen enough of England recently, and I think the tour of South Africa is really going to be a good, almost test to see how good England are in that format now. I mean, the side, realistically, from the side that won the ODI World Cup hasn't changed massively. The one notable exception is that there's no Ben Stokes because Ben Stokes is retired from ODI cricket.
Although he's open to being recalled for the World Cup.
Exactly. Do we think Ben Stokes is going to come back for the World Cup? Of course he is. That's what he's built for. Ben Stokes is built for these environments. Of course he's going to play in the World Cup. Obviously, it just has to happen. But I don't think England are in that prime position because when they won it under Owen Morgan, there was a real sort of 2 to 3 year process into getting the team up to scratch. And I think England don't have the ability to focus on more than one or two things at a time. I think having the test resurgence on the one hand was the key message of 2022. And I think they'll be looking at that in 2023, especially with the home Ashes. So that, again, may take precedence over ODIs. And you can see from the white ball format with Matt Mott and Joss Butler, the focus was really on the T20s. It was on the shortest format of the game. It was on the 100, that type of thing. You can even see in England domestic cricket, right? They don't focus on the 50 over tournament. The Royal London Cup has become a second 11 tournament because of the 100. Like, we don't see any big names in that tournament now. The final was at Trent Bridge. No one cared. Like, it was just such a low key tournament this year, and I think that, you know, because of that, because there's not that focus on that format of the game, it's just been lost a bit. In terms of sorry for that waffle, but in terms of prediction for the ODI World Cup, just coming back on that segue, my two names that I think are going to be in there are India and Australia. I think that you can never write those two teams out. Contrasting to England, Australia seem to have the ability to always be good in every single format, or at least up there in the top 4 in every single format. And I think it's because they have the same pool of players across all of them, whereas a lot of different countries take different approaches. So there we go. That's roundabout segue, complaining about England and ODIs for a bit, but my prediction, India or Australia.
My heart's with England, given that they have kind of turned it around. I think the start of Joss Butler's era, when they were playing a lot of one-day matches, not necessarily 2020 matches, they didn't do so well. And I think Joss Butler was finding his feet as captaincy, making that team his own. And also, you said about the Royal London One-Day Cup being a second 11 thing. I think England's one-day matches have been a second 11 thing as well. They've come up against full-strength teams and played their second 11 essentially, and they've still done okay. So I think England are still in with a massive shot of winning that World Cup. They are one of the strongest teams in the world still. India, obviously, they're my head team. India are very strong. They're playing at home. I can just see it happening. But I'm going to go completely left field and just go with Sri Lanka. Just got a feeling. And sometimes those left field choices, they just end up working. So, yeah, I think Sri Lanka could be in with a shot.
You know what? One team that none of us have mentioned is Bangladesh. But Bangladesh have got absolutely incredible players. They just don't have the power hitters, which means that they really struggle in T20s. But in ODIs, they can really cause some headaches. And Bangladesh, there's the dark horse. But like I say, we're going to do a big old preview of this soon enough anyway. So you don't need to worry about that. We'll preview all the teams and you know, get some informed opinions. Right, before we end, let's just mention who we think, just one player that's going to absolutely smash it in white ball this year. Okay, one player, be as exciting or as boring as you want, but they're just going to be an outstanding player in some discipline. Zach?
Offer Archer.
Shaheen Shah Afridi.
Oh,
Super idea.
They're both really good suggestions. You know what?
Litton Das.
Isham
I was actually going to mention Litton Das. I'm gonna say Sam Curran. I think he could have a really good year. Saying that, I think he could have an absolute stinker. But you know what? No, he's going to have a really good year. So there we go. Because he only really, did stuff in the back end of last year. And he did very good things. Basically won England a World Cup. So yeah, that's mine. Right. So that's it. That's all we've got time for. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your continued support. We're growing slowly but surely, and we really do appreciate all of your help. You can follow our social medias. We are at Cricket Nerds Pod. That's on Instagram and Twitter. I think we're like the Cricket Nerds on TikTok and other things. All of it is in the link tree down below. You can also listen to our podcasts on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and more. Leave your Cricket Nerds questions down below. We like the conversation. We get lonely. And other than that, we'll see you guys later. Goodbye.